With all the information about Cyberpunk Edgerunners 2 coming out, I thought it would be interesting to look at some other games that would benefit from the same treatment. Now, there are plenty of games that would be incredible as anime, but this isn't necessarily the only thing I'm looking for. As a big fan of Trigger, I'm looking specifically for games that would lend themselves well to the Trigger style. And for the first game on my list, I'm going to be looking at 2020's Yakuza Like a Dragon. For those who don't know, Yakuza Like a Dragon is a game that follows Ichiban Kasuga, figuring out what modern Yakuza life looks like after his 18-year stint in prison. I played this game for the first time a couple years ago, and it absolutely floored me with how well it balanced story, action, and comedy. And if that already isn't a great enough pitch for it to be a Trigger anime, I don't know what is. I think if they leaned into the humor of something like Inferno Cop and mixed it with the depths of story in something like Kisnever, it would be a recipe for success. The tricky part would probably be balancing those two tones. In the game, the main story is played pretty straight, but the side content of the game is where its eccentric side lives. By dividing the game like that, it gives the player the autonomy to choose when to interact with the goofier side of Yakuza. I think one way you could translate the same idea to anime is by having a lighter comedy anime that runs alongside the main show, like Attack on Titan Junior High was to Attack on Titan or Rock Lee's Ninja Pals to Naruto. I'm not usually a fan of these chibi versions of shows, but this is an instance where I think it would make a lot of sense. If they did divide the different tones into two different releases, the viewer gets the same autonomy that a player would playing the game. Or you could even lean into a comedy and integrate it into the main story like Sakamoto Days or Spy Family does. Either way, I think there's a lot of potential here for something great. Next on my list is 2012's Lollipop Chainsaw. Lollipop Chainsaw is a game written by James Gunn that follows Juliet Starling, a high school cheerleader that hunts zombies. Honestly, this seems like a no-brainer. Applying the fast-paced action of Kill la Kill or high school comedy of Panty and Stocking to a video game that already shares a ton of the same sensibilities just makes sense to me. Even though Lollipop Chainsaw is more inspired by classic horror than shonen anime, the bones feel like they were ripped out of a page of Trigger's book. You could even take a page out of Mob Psycho's book and have a combo meter filling up throughout multiple episodes that would culminate into a holy chainsaw. Leaning into the fact that the show is based on a video game would be a lot more fun with this vibe anyway. The biggest issue I think would actually be how similar in tone it would be to something like Panty and Stocking. But I think leaning more into the campy horror nature of Lollipop Chainsaw would differentiate them enough. Something that always sticks out to me about Trigger is their bold iconography, and honestly leaning more into Trigger's style in that way would be awesome. While something like Edgerunners definitely looks like Trigger, I think a Lollipop Chainsaw adaptation would benefit from looking even more like Trigger. Next game is Castle Crashers. Castle Crashers is a hack and slash beat 'em up game made by Behemoth. Now these art styles are already cut from the same cloth, but besides that, I think adapting Castle Crashers into a series with shorter episodes like Space Patrol Luluco would be really cool. You could have each episode cover one of 11 zones as they go through their journey to rescue each princess, and if you don't want to make these characters talk, you could have a narrator like Stamper in Battle Block Theater.
When suddenly the ocean was all like surprise and a huge, massive storm brewed out of nowhere. Boy, that was quick.
I'm honestly surprised that Behemoth hasn't made any cartoon shorts like this before, and obviously using Trigger to animate something like that might be like using a sledgehammer to crack a nut. But on the other hand, Trigger made Inferno Cop, so obviously they're okay with taking things lighter every once in a while. Now I'm going to talk about Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive is one of Insomniac's most underrated games, and I think making the jump to animation would be really sweet. Sunset Overdrive is about a corrupt soda company called Fizco starting a zombie outbreak. I didn't expect to put two comedy-forward zombie games on this list, but here we are. I do think Sunset Overdrive is a little bit different than Lollipop Chainsaw. I think this anime would focus less on the actual zombies and focus more on the urban pop art locale and taking down the corrupt Fizco corporation, while zombies would just act as a backdrop for the action. Come to think of it, urban pop art just seems like a layup for Trigger. Like imagine a Da Blob anime. I don't have time to add another game to this video, but Da Blob would be cool. Sunset Overdrive's highlights, gameplay-wise, are the improvised weapons and high-speed traversal, and neither of those are foreign to Trigger at all. Unfortunately, Sunset Overdrive was a huge commercial flop, so I really doubt that we will be seeing anything out of that in the future. The last game on my list is Jak 2. Jak 2 is a sequel to the beloved PS2 game Jak and Daxter, and was a huge tonal shift for the series. Everything is darker now. Jak and Daxter 2 was the first game I ever played where I was deeply entrenched in the game and the story. Adapting this sci-fi tribalism vibe into anime would be like something we've never seen before. This is just screaming for thick black outlines. I'm actually not sure what Trigger project I would want this to feel like besides, honestly, Cyberpunk, but I think they would do a good job with it. I think I'd want this to be explored in a tight 2-core anime so we have some time to explore some of the less main story aspects of the game. Give me Haven City Stadium for a whole episode, or honestly just make a Jak X racing anime. That would be so sick. I think having some time to live and breathe in this world would add to replicating the feeling of the game. And while I don't miss the era of endless filler episodes, some side stories that don't necessarily progress the plot are really good. like the fishing episode of Angel Beats, or the baseball episode of Samurai Champloo. Anyways, it was a lot of fun thinking of what games could be translated into this style, and if you like this video, please consider subscribing. Thank you.